Alright, and welcome back. And picking up where we left off, we started to create our stone archway as you can see before you on the screen. When I press the space bar and I tap into four-way view, you'll see what this particular stone archway is looking like, and it's taking good shape. The next thing we want to do is focus on the fact that we do in fact want to have these red lines going through our stone archway, mostly because we will want to extrude these faces off of it and consider it to be like a bird's ledge. So at this point, I also would like to introduce to you what it means to be quadratic in terms of our polygons. Right now, all of the faces that we've created are all quadratic. So in the case of this particular face, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices, there's a solid face, and 4 edges. This one appears to be a triangle, but as I point out, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices and 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. So in fact, it is completely quadratic. We want to keep with this idea that we're going to create completely quadratic models moving forward. This is mostly of importance to objects that are animated in game engines. However, in general, whenever we have an object that is exported into a game engine, we prefer it to be fully quadratic, animation or not. Alright, moving forward, the next thing we're going to use is the Insert Edge Loop tool. So we used this just a little bit ago to create this particular curve that we have right here. So we're going to use the same tool to create the same curve going through this direction right here. And this is going to wrap all the way around. Now understandably, you're going to see more edges than what you see in the particular guideline, and that's okay. The key here is that we're meeting the minimum requirements for what's shown in the red guidelines. Alright, going back to this particular poly model that we have inside of vertex mode, once again this particular shape here appears to be a diamond-like shape, which one might consider to be non-quadratic, but it is in fact still quadratic. Now that being said, we're going to try to close up these holes as much as possible. So we're going to go into vertex mode and we can swipe through and adjust the placement of these. Oops, I needed to go into the Q key to turn off the tool. Sorry. So we're going to swipe through these particular vertices that we have right here and adjust the placement of them moving forward. Alright, so this gives us a pretty solid quadratic model. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to identify where there are similarities in the archway that we could potentially mirror over to the other side. So looking at what we've already completed, we're pretty happy with what we've already structured. So before we go identifying that in fact this side of the archway, the right side, is an exact mirror on the left side, it also is another duplication of it on the far left side. So before we can mirror this over, we have a couple things to do. One is go into object mode. So when we go into object mode, you can see it's in full, and so we're going to do a Control D or Edit Duplicate and move this archway off to the side. Now we've got a complete replica of it. Next thing we're going to do is zoom in closely to this model and go into face mode, and using the Q key to turn off the move tool, we're going to select the 3 faces that are in the end of that archway and press the delete key. This essentially creates us a hole in our model. In general, that's not ideal, but we'll fix that in just a minute here. So we're going to go back into object mode once we've done that. Now I'm going to come down here to my lower left corner looking at the front view of my archway. And so in object mode, we're going to be able to go to the mesh menu and click on the options box next to mirror. Now when this option box menu comes to show you here, you can see based on what I have already previously selected, we are cutting across the z-axis. So you see it's going to go across the z-axis. X-axis. It exists in the positive x-axis, and so we want it to exist in the negative x-axis. And so again, over here on the far left side, where we see the legend, the current archway exists on the right side, which is the positive x, and when we mirror it over to the left side, it will take on the negative x. So we will leave the combine with original selected. We're going to merge the borders. There's no other further changes. We'll press the mirror button. When we do this, if by chance you see that it overlaps as you just saw here, it's a simple adjustment that we just basically drag this left side over just a little bit. And so the reasoning that it's squishing down the way you just saw it was because this black solid line that goes through the middle is technically the center point of the stage. And so based on the world axis, it wants to align with that. But in reality, it also, Maya, that being, also knows that this is a complete mirror to the other side. And so therefore this adjustment tool is present for us. So let's go right click and go back into object mode. When you click on it, it also should turn green. All right, so looking at this particular object, as we zoom out, it looks pretty good. All of our alignments are in place there. The next thing we're going to do is try to figure out how we can best use this duplicated copy as a part of this archway with minimal amount of modeling on our end. So obviously it is a complete replica of it because we duplicated it. I'll press the F key to kind of make alignment with it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is identify which portions of this particular tower can be removed so we can connect it to this portion of this tower. So off the bat, we're going to say that this whole ledge area probably can be removed. So we're going to swipe those, and you'll notice as I swiped across, I may have crossed over into this particular archway, but it's not selecting them because technically they're separate objects. All right, next thing we're going to do is see where else we can remove. So the top portion, we're going to click and drag, and make sure you click and drag above the top portion to also select that top face. So make sure we remove those. You'll see in micro detail here, I do actually have extra faces that I need to remove myself from the side views and from the front views on top of the bird's ledge, so to speak, of the archway right there. So let's make sure we've also removed them from all views. And let's go to the channel box. We can turn this off for the moment to make sure we've got nothing sticking out. All right, so it looks like we're in good shape in terms of the object that we are intending on connecting to this other archway. The next thing we need to do is also identify what faces don't we need to have on the main archway. So you can see this is a nice match over here, so we'll right click and go to face mode, and I'm going to get out of the move tool by pressing the Q key and removing these extra faces that are in place right here. Press the delete key. Okay, so now we have a big hole in our original archway, but we also know that these faces are going to match up nicely. The next thing we also need to identify is how much of this particular archway we can remove. And so likewise, we can right click and go into face mode, select as much of these right side faces as possible. Let me zoom in so you can see this. So you see I've swiped this whole area right here. This not only includes the faces on the positive X side, but also the faces that I've swiped on the front and negative Z axes. So we can delete those as well. And so now we're left with the last portion of the archway that we would like to connect with this one. All right, so let's move this over so we can see it better. Now when you turn on the move tool, you'll see that your axis is way down at the bottom. And this is because of the way we mirrored it over, duplicated it, and now we've deleted aspects of it, but it doesn't change the point of origin. So that's why it's way down there at the bottom. All right, so we're going to continue moving this over until we get a decent alignment with the original archway. I'm going to save this file. It's getting a little slow. And then if you'd like to go to File, Save As, version 3, that would be great. Oh boy. Okay, so it's been saved yet again. Again, the reason why I'm giving that version number is in case the file becomes corrupt, I'll have something to back it up. Alright, so the next thing we have to do is start to connect these vertices. that are part of the arch on the left to the main portion on the right. So in order for us to do this, we actually have to identify that both objects need to combine first. So let's select both. So click on the left, shift, click on the right. In either order, doesn't matter. Go to Mesh and go to Combine. All right, so now we've got two combined objects. The problem with this, though, is that we do have some gaping holes and some overlapped faces, and they're not connected yet. So let's take a moment to select the vertices that exist. And I'm going to swipe them because I also want the front and the back, and I'm going to get them pretty close to where I would like them to align, but not leave them directly on top of it either. This one's going to be a sticky one, huh? That's okay, we'll figure it out. So let me turn off the Move tool so I can make sure I'm selecting the right one. So that's the right one on this side, on the front, and then we'll identify the correct one on the back. Alright, so we basically have separated them a little bit. And then let's do the same thing for the bottom. Leaving a little bit of a hole there. And same thing on this bottom, we're going to leave a little bit of a hole here. Alright, so now that we've accomplished that task, we're now going to merge together the vertices to close up the holes that we've created. Okay, so put this up. So this takes a little bit more time. I can't swipe anymore in doing this because if I do that, it'll connect them on both the front and the back and create a beak or a peak. So I want to make sure that what I've selected is only the two that I'm looking at. You can always toggle between the 4 key, which is what we're looking at right now, and the 5 key, which is wireframe to smooth shade all mode, to ensure that you've selected nothing behind there. Alright, so within this, we're going to go into the Edit Mesh menu and choose Merge to Center. And now because I want to use this tool a bunch, I'm actually going to click on that stippled menu at the stippled bar at the top of the menu, and now I can choose Merge to Center, and then it makes it very easy for me to toggle after I swipe and choose Merge to Center. Now this guy down here seems like a crazy connection, so let's go with the Merge to Center, and then we will realign those two where they need to be in just a moment. Merge to Center, and we're going to work our way down and around. Oops, not transform, Merge to Center. Alright, so now our archway is completely closed up. Looks good. The last thing we said we were going to do is make sure that this arch had a good arch direction here. So we'll swipe. Now don't just click but swipe, so that way both the front and the back take on this particular change. And we'll swipe through here, make sure these look good. So the reason why we want these to align as best as possible to that potential arch that's there is because we now want to go through and extrude these faces out. Now it's important that when we do this next step that we do it all at the same time, so that way we don't have faces between our faces. So for example, I'm going to make sure I'm in the Q key, not any tool, and I'm going to click Shift, click all the way around. Now for this portion on the front side, that's great. And then, let's see. This is the perspective view. You can see what I'm about to do is only on the front side. We're going to go into the extrude tool and pull this out just a smidge. So now this gives us a nice little ledge for the birds to sit upon. Okay? Alright, so then we're going to continue back over to this side. And again, the Q key. The fact that we've got angles going in different directions is not noticeable. Alright, so let me tumble so you can see this. And we'll go with the extrude tool once again and pull this out. And there we go. And we have a nice little ledge for the birds to sit upon. So let's go back into our four-way view and see if there's any other ledges that we have to be aware of. It's getting kind of sticky. Alright, so the last thing I would say is probably need to adjust the placement of these final vertices. So let's do this and grab onto all those, a quick swipe, and we'll move them back over. And then likewise for all of these, minus this edge one. So let me be a better swiper. And only select those. Alright, so you see they're lining up nicely. And then you can see the last thing we need to do is actually pull out the edge on the front right here. So let's tap out of this. Close this edit mesh menu, it's not necessary anymore. And let's see. This whole ledge needs to be selected, it appears. So we'll go back into face mode. Turn off the move tool. Alright, so you can see this is where we're selecting it from. Choose the extrude tool and we'll pull these out just a smidge. And now we've met the template listed down here. Alright, take us back in object mode. I'm going to save this file and then I'm going to save it one more time as version 4. And then the next video we'll talk about texturing the archway. See you in a minute.